show season that we'll see them do dozens of air shows all throughout the U.S. From Denton, Texas to Atlantic City Beachfront to Grand Forks Air Force Base, David Schultz Air Shows provides the very best in aviation predictions. CH47 Delta model, this is the Army's version of heavy lift. Notice the tandem rotors, and notice the rotors turning in opposite directions, counteracting the torque of one another. Very stable hover. This aircraft's being flown by Captain Trevor Patrick, Captain Nathan Smith, and Sergeant Blake Andrews. It's out of Indiantown Gap, not that far to the west of here. Very similar in mission and capability to the CH-53E. Max airspeed of 170 knots. It grosses out at 50,000 pounds, seats 33, although you could really never gross the thing out with people on board, and a minimum crew of 2 pilots and 1 flight engineer. Its primary mission is air movement and air assault. More than likely, it's going to be relegated to carrying equipment because it can do everything, but the 60s will generally be carrying the passengers in Army assaults. Troops and equipment and heavy lift. Stateside missions, heavy lift, water bucket ops, rescue hoist, passenger movement. If you remember the incredible later Johnstown floods of some years ago, I think about 15 years ago during the wintertime, these same 47s were the ones that pulled quite a few people out of trees and out of raging rivers. The Pennsylvania Guard is a reserve organization, just like the Marine Reserve, Naval Reserve, Air Force Reserve, Air Guard. You get a lot of bang for your buck here. All these personnel are held to exactly the same standards as active duty personnel, but you pay about 25% of the personnel costs. Roll on like that than it does to come to a hover, so you might see the aircraft do this rolling landing instead of a stationary hover. This aircraft and crew returned from Iraqi freedom deployment in January of this year, so it's seen the world. It's part of B Company, 2nd 104th Aviation Battalion at Indiantown Gap. It's a General Support Aviation Battalion, or GSAB. You might be able to hear the UH-60 cranking up in the field, the QVC field. We have to be kind of careful up there because the QVC network, as you might know, does 24-hour broadcasts, and we got to be careful not to rattle the rafters too much while they're continuing to sell things. But we do appreciate them allowing us to use their field. Speaking of appreciation, we need to thank constantly the Civil Air Patrol. Without these young men and women, this event couldn't happen at all. We greatly appreciate their help. Please take the time to thank them. It just simply couldn't happen without these young men and women and the older folks who serve as their commanders. Thank you so much. 47 coming over for a high-speed pass. Funny looking ladder-like antenna on the left-hand side is, I think, the high-frequency antenna, which we thought was pretty neat like 20 years ago, back when you didn't have cell phones everywhere. You could make these high-frequency radio transmissions and get cell phone patches and, you know, talk to your wife back in the States when you were way out somewhere else. We thought that was pretty cool before GPS and cell phones. The aircraft burns about 2,200 pounds per hour of fuel, powered by 2 very, very powerful gas turbine engines. We should hear our H-60 turning up back to our right rear. I want to thank you all for being here today and for supporting the museum. Thank you to all the volunteers who have helped out. Looks like it's been another good day.